Welcome to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. We are recapping preseason week 1. Adam Azer here with Heath Cummings and Jamey Eisenberg. That was fun, Heath. Wasn't that a fun weekend?
It was a lot of fun. We got all kinds of very important things to react to. Nothing that we're going to react to is going to turn out being an overreaction 3 weeks from now. It all matters a lot.
We also have some big injuries to Marquise Brown and hopefully not to Malik Nabers, who Brian Dable just said is I think he's okay. Doesn't look like he fractured his ankle or anything.
We don't think it's a fracture.
We don't think it's a fracture. Yeah. Why wouldn't you know by now?
Not if the swelling's too bad to get a good x-ray.
Oh, okay. There you go, Doc. What's up, Jamey?
Hello.
Yeah, we had a decent amount of starters. I thought the Broncos running backs, that was an interesting one to watch. DeAndre Swift barely played 2 snaps, maybe 3. Khalil Herbert played 14. Was that an audition? We'll talk about all the rookie quarterbacks and all those things, rankings, risers and fallers. And we do have hopefully time. I'll make time for your emails. These are St. Jude Draftathon emails at Fantasy Football. Well, actually, these would not come through fantasyfootball@cbsi.com, but the other ones do, fantasyfootball@cbsi.com. And today is FFT Open Day, 8 o'clock tonight. Go to tinyurl.com/draftathon2024 and sign up to be in one of our leagues. We're all commissioners. There are 12 different CBS commissioners. You can join a league. There are 11 spots in each league. It's $250 to join. It all benefits to St. Jude. We will be raising $33,000 for St. Jude, hopefully by the end of the evening. All right, let's start with some superlatives here. Were you more impressed by Jayden Daniels or Caleb Williams this weekend?
Jayden Daniels.
Yes. I was really happy that like 10 days ago, I just looked it up. I had written that, man, I was too low on Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels, and I moved him up. And after this weekend, I wanted to move him up again. Like I just want to that's the top 4 quarterbacks, and then it should be Kyler, Anthony Richardson, and these 2. They're awesome. The upside's incredible.
Oh, wow. Okay, wait. Top 4 quarterbacks, Kyler, Anthony Richardson. So you put Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels ahead of Joe Burrow.
I didn't do it. I'm a coward, but I said that's what I want to do.
Okay. Yeah, so let's recap. So Daniels played against the second-string Jets, played without his offensive tackles, but the Jets sat their defensive starters. He went 2 of 3, threw a very nice deep ball to De'Ami Brown, 45 yards. He also had a 3-yard touchdown run. Caleb Williams just has an absolute cannon. Boy, does he make some he already is making these great throws. He was 4 of 7, 95 yards, no touchdowns. He ran for 13 yards. All right, any final thoughts on that, Jamey?
No, I thought they both look great. I mean, it shows you the upside of what they can be. Like he said, it's I initially had Caleb Williams my first rankings following the draft at 12 and Daniels at 11, I believe. Daniels I've kept inside the top 12. Caleb I have at 13. I might make that switch and put him ahead of Purdy, depending on what happens with the 49ers situation right now. But I would have no problem with either guy as a starter. I'm with Heath. Like I have Daniels right now. So my rankings 5 through 9 are Richardson 5, Murray 6, Stroud 7, Burrow 8, Daniels 9. And man, do I want to put Daniels ahead of those guys.
Well, it's hard to look at what CJ Stroud did on one drive and put Jayden Daniels ahead of him, right? I mean,
no. I mean, look, it's clearly format matters. We talk a lot about 6 points for passing touchdowns versus 4 and 6. In 4 point for passing touchdowns, Daniels would be ahead of those guys just because it would not shock me if he runs for 1,000 yards this year.
Okay. Were you more discouraged by Justin Fields or encouraged by Joe Burrow?
Probably more encouraged by Joe Burrow.
Encouraged for Russell Wilson? No, it's just the sacks and the fumbles with Fields. I think he's a backup quarterback unless Russ gets hurt anyway.
Yeah.
You would rather Russ start?
Well, I think he's going to.
No, I don't disagree, but you would rather for our purposes, for fantasy, you'd rather have Russell?
Well, yes, because I have a lot of George Pickens and a lot of Pat Freiermuth, and I think he'll be better for them. I'd rather have Justin Fields as a starting fantasy quarterback in my quarterback rankings, but for everybody else, I'd rather have Russ.
Okay. All right, Fields did go 5 of 6 for 67 yards, but he fumbled twice. I think he was sacked twice. And Joe Burrow, 5 of 7, 51 yards and a touchdown without Jamar Chase. And just, I would say, generally looked pretty good, looked pretty healthy, was throwing the ball well. Are you more concerned about sharing snaps for Brian Robinson in Washington or DeAndre Swift in Chicago? Are you more concerned about sharing snaps for Brian Robinson or DeAndre Swift?
I'm more concerned about Robinson because I think Austin Eckler is a much better player if he's healthy than the guys behind DeAndre Swift.
We knew Brian Robinson was going to be sharing.
Right.
Like that. I'm not going to say neither. I don't think the Swift thing really mattered. And Robinson Eckler, I expect to be close to 50-50.
Okay. It was the first time we really saw it. Eckler played 5 snaps. Robinson played 6 snaps. What did you think of the Bears backfield? Because Swift barely played. Khalil Herbert got a lot of run. Swift, I think Swift's last play was a 42-yard catch and run on a little dump off, and then Herbert came in, had 3 straight carries. Roshan Johnson did not play. Jamey, are there any takeaways from this?
I think, whenever you see a player do something significant in a preseason game that what their role is, like what more did he have to do that day? So I really wasn't worried about Swift's usage too much. I think the fact that he's with the starters, that's what you expect. So Herbert was going to play, Roshan is going to play, so again, if we're comparing, if the topic is concerned and who you more concerned about, I'm more concerned about if you buy into either one of Robinson or Eckler, that those 2 guys are going to share much more so than I think Swift will share.
All right. Cause Herbert did play with the starters too. It's just hard to know, like if they're splitting even 60-40, I think that's a problem, especially if Herbert's a short yardage guy.
Well, I can't imagine DeAndre Swift's going to I don't think he's a 20 touch per game guy.
No.
So 60-40, I think is a pretty good guess.
Would you rather have DeAndre Swift or Tony Pollard?
Pollard
right now.
All right. Let's talk about that shortly. This one, last superlative. More annoying, the Titans backfield or when you've been waiting all day to watch a show with your spouse and he or she falls asleep 5 minutes into it?
The latter.
Very annoying, right? Happens a lot at this house.
Yeah. So you don't just keep watching it?
Sometimes. I mean, it's gotten to the point. Well, first of all, it's not always her that falls asleep. Sometimes it's me, but it has gotten to the point where I think we now have permission. We've realized we're never going to get through any shows unless we start watching independently. So.
I can't remember the last time I fell asleep watching a show that I wanted to watch.
Oh, happens every night to me, basically. But yeah. You're TV off kind of guy when you sleep?
Oh, we don't have a TV in our bedroom.
Whoa. Wow. Stone Age.
No, it's just no comment.
I'm a big TV guy. All right. Listen, Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. Are you guys viewing this as a big win for Pollard in this battle?
Not a big win, but I thought he looked good. And
he looked real good, yeah.
You go back to, again, we've said this quite a bit. Last year, he said he felt healthy around that Carolina game. And from that point on, he performed much better, coming back from the broken leg that he suffered in 2022. And so if he's back to his old self and probably doesn't get overworked, which seems like it's going to be the case, then he may get back to being that efficient level runner that we saw, which everybody coveted, at the end of the 2022 season and certainly into 2023. So I wouldn't run away from Spears. I wouldn't panic about it. Obviously, he got the touchdown, so that's positive for him. But the way Pollard ran, I thought looked like the better of the 2.
Yeah, pretty. But would you say the usage was pretty much even? Just in terms of they both played on third down. Spears got in. They both were in near the goal line. It didn't really look like there was one who was favored over the other, except Pollard did start.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we expected, though, right? Like we anticipated both guys being used. Like they didn't lie, in the first instance of seeing it. They said from, I don't know if it was the first comment or certainly when Pollard signed, but I go back to the owners' meetings at the end of March when I spoke to Callahan myself, and he said we're going to use both of them. Every assistant coach, we're going to use both of them. That's what you should have anticipated, and that's the case. So Pollard falling may end up being a discount, and Spears is kind of not really moved very much, so he's maybe just appropriately priced.
So I've got in my projections, and I didn't change it. But I've got 204 carries for Pollard, 160 for Spears, and 58 targets for each of them.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean the carries may be closer together, but sure.
All right. Well, those are some superlatives. We'll talk about who's moving up and down in the rankings in just a moment. The FFT Open, as I mentioned, tonight is the night, everybody. Go to tinyurl.com/draftathon2024, tinyurl.com/draftathon2024 at 8 p.m. Eastern and join one of our leagues. The FFT Open is 144 teams in 12 different 12-team leagues. You got to win your league. If you win your league, you get into the tournament at the end, which is a 2-week playoff, and then we will crown an FFT Open champion. This is the second year. Last year was a big success. This year is going to be even better. Also, if you want to join a mock draft with me on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, that we're going to do a live stream of that mock draft. You can do that at tinyurl.com/draftathon2024. And there are a few spots left in Jamey's mock draft, which is Thursday at noon. My mock draft's Tuesday at 8 p.m. Jamey's is Thursday at noon Eastern time. Join those. It's $50 to join. And again, it all goes to St. Jude. We're doing all of this to raise money for an amazing cause. And if you nominated us in Podcast Awards, I want to thank you. We are on to the next round. If you get an email from Podcast Awards, they could be asking you to vote in the next round, where you can help us win this year. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the biggest risers, the biggest fallers for Jamey and Heath after preseason week 1, and we'll be right back on FFT. This is a very busy show. I have a ton of notes. We haven't even gotten to the Marquise Brown news yet. We do have to talk about that, but I want to know first your 2 biggest rankings risers from over the weekend. 2 biggest rankings risers, and then we'll do the rankings fallers. Heath, you want to start 2 biggest rankings risers?
I think Jamey should start because he sent his list in first and he had the best names.
I'm going to have to find out what the exact names were. So give me a second.
I got
it. I moved a lot of guys around. I will say I did. Adam probably pulled up. I did make one move at the top. I moved Tyreek Hill over CeeDee Lamb. I know we talked about that last week. So I moved Hill to the number 1 receiver, just with the drama going on in Dallas. I always like to, play it out as if I'm drafting today, who would I rather have? And while Lamb could still be amazing, Hill feels a little bit safe right now. But here's some risers, as you see on the YouTube page. So Ty Chandler, these weren't like significant, like dramatic moves too much, but guys that did move up. So I moved Chandler up a few spots. I like the way he ran. I know Nwagnu had a big run and looked explosive. And so, who knows what happens if something happens there in Jones. But, you never know. Braelon Allen, I moved up kind of in that handcuff range for me, which is like right around running back 50. So if you were looking to, or lottery ticket guys, I shouldn't say handcuffs, but lottery ticket guys, if something happens to Breece Hall, I thought Allen looked really good as well, given the fact that he, seems to be the clear-cut number 2 guy there. Rice obviously was a byproduct of the Hollywood Brown news. Khalil Shakir.
What are we doing with Rashee Rice? Where are we moving him up to?
I put him at wide receiver 26. So just outside the top 24. I don't anticipate Marquise Brown missing too much time. So I don't want to overreact to that. Same with Xavier Worthy, not moving them up so much, but clearly any missed time is going to help those other 2 guys. And for Rice, the biggest thing is clearly no suspension. So if he does not get suspended, then you're going to get a very good player still at a discounted price. So he's now part of the, he's moved further up in the blob of, like wide receiver 20 through 32, 33. That could easily be a top, 20 caliber player. Shakir, like I said, I had him a little bit too low, so I moved him back up to where I think I originally had him when I first in my rankings. And then Meyers, I had outside of my top 60, like 61, 62, and moved him up to like 52, 53 range just because I think we're going to see him back in the slot, which will benefit him.
Oh, actually, I was going to say he was a lot better last year when he wasn't playing in the slot, Jakobi Meyers. His first 6 games of the year, he was a monster. He was on pace for 159 targets, over 100 catches, nearly 1,100 yards, 14 touchdowns. Just Jakobi Meyers we're talking about for the Raiders. and his slot percentage there was 25%. After that, it was 32%. Not a huge difference, but he was.
But his best stretch of his career was playing in the slot in New England.
Yeah, well, yeah, but so last year was the first year of Jakobi Meyers' career where his slot rate was below 50%. And at the start of the year, it looked like they had sort of found something. They made him an outside receiver, and he got off to his best start. And then you could say he moved back into the slot. He didn't really. I mean, the difference was Garoppolo stopped playing, and he just had no connection with Aiden O'Connell. They didn't really throw that much. I don't really know what to make of that. But last year was by far his lowest slot rate. It was even lower earlier in the year when Meyers was great. But he has been a top 30 wide receiver per game 2 years in a row. I will point that out. And he has 14 touchdown catches over his last 2 seasons. Jakobi Meyers had 2 touchdown catches in his first 3 seasons combined. So where did you move him again? Let me take a look. Sorry. Meyers.
It just was like a clutter of receivers that I had, 50 through 60, and he's now higher up in that group.
He's 55. I put him in the notes because I also, first of all, they're raving about him. They say he had a really good camp. Devontae Adams didn't play in this game, obviously, but what if he gets straight? It's not completely out of the question.
It's just a matter of, and I don't want to get too excited about it because, like you said, no Adams. I thought Bowers looked great, as well, and they're going to use Meyers also. And don't overlook, deep leagues, and certainly, if he's available in Dynasty, Trey Tucker, he's going to have some opportunities to make some plays too, so one of these guys that will pop up every couple of weeks, but the reason why Meyers goes back in the slot is because Tucker's going to be the other outside
guy. Guys, is Khalil Shakir, who's now 49th in our rankings, is he your highest ranked Bills receiver?
Not yet. I still have Coleman higher.
I have Coleman 48th and Shakir 49th. So Shakir probably would have been my biggest riser. And if not, it might have been Rashee Rice, at least amongst the guys that matter. And I think it's worthwhile to note that a lot of the guys who move in the first week of the preseason are guys who were ranked where Jakobi Meyers, where Khalil Shakir, or Braelon Allen were. It's not going to be a lot of movement in the top 24 or 30.
Yeah, the Chiefs receivers has been a pretty fluid situation throughout the offseason. First, we suspected or we expected a suspension for Rice. Now we don't think it's necessarily going to happen this year. Now you have the Marquise Brown injury. So things have changed a lot there, Heath. So what's your current read on the Chiefs wide receivers?
I've got Rice at wide receiver 25 up to round 4. I've got Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy back-to-back at wide receiver 40 and wide receiver 41 in round 8.
You want to add any risers, or should we go to the fallers?
Yeah, a name that I haven't said all summer, mostly because I don't know how to say it, and I'm going to try. But Andrei Iosivas, I tried to just kind of ignore him because I want Jamar Chase to play in the slot more and Jermaine Burton to be that guy on the outside. But at least we have to consider the possibility he's going to hold on to that wide receiver 3 job. Burton was playing in the fourth quarter. Iosivas played with Burrow as much as anybody, I think maybe more than anybody. So it may be Chase and Higgins on the outside and the second-year wide receiver in the slot.
Yeah, I think it's Iosivas.
Okay.
I think it's Iosivas. But it's pretty close. That was pretty good. Andrei Iosivas for the Cincinnati Bengals. All right, Heath, how about fallers? You want to start with fallers?
This was more of a, I guess, procedural one, but it's time to drop Joe Mixon until he's 100%. It's been 2 weeks with a hamstring injury. Full? Or he was there at practice? Well, I didn't see that this morning, so I may have to move him back up. But I thought I thought he was still being hampered by that. Also, Curtis Samuel was a big faller. Marquise Brown was the biggest faller.
Why Curtis Samuel? Just because Shakir and Coleman played so much. Shakir played well.
I don't think if Coleman's good and Shakir's good, Curtis Samuel is going to matter that much.
Coleman didn't do anything though until he didn't do anything with Josh Allen. I'm pretty sure his production came he stayed on the field with who their backup is. Sorry, Trubisky. Yeah, I don't know that Coleman had a target or a catch from Josh Allen. Not that Allen played much, but I didn't really it was good that Coleman was out there.
Did Curtis Samuel didn't really play that much with Josh Allen though, did he?
No, their 2 receivers and their 2 receiver sets were Coleman and Shakir when Allen was out there.
They're 2
it's a small sample size, because again,
right.
Allen didn't play very much, but I don't think it's bad to, have some concerns about Samuel. The thing about Samuel is, look, he's going to be a jack of all trades for them. So he's going to get some carries. He's going to obviously play in the slot when they go to 3 receiver sets. At least that would be the expectations. Now, we don't know, and this is something that teams do that drive us crazy. Mac Hollins didn't play. And how much of that is he going to be one of those, hey, he's a really good blocker, and he's going to be on the field more than we want to see? Those things I hate. So we may get that stupid scenario, but for the most part, I think when you look at their top 2 receivers, it's hard not to say Shakir and Coleman, and it might be that order, but Shakir and Coleman should be the 2 that you target. But based on ADP, you're going to get. I don't think Shakir jumps that much. I don't think he jumps into the top 100 ADP wise. Pretty good values on the other 2 guys, not named Coleman, if you want to take shots at him.
It's interesting with Shakir because I think probably people would say he's safer, but doesn't have as much upside as Coleman. Would you agree with that?
100%. Yeah.
I'm not even real sure how safe he is, but I would definitely agree with it doesn't have as much upside.
I think you'd have to say that, but I just want to put he has been a yak machine. It has been very few catches. That's the problem. It's like a very small sample size, but he doesn't have that low. Khalil Shakir doesn't have that low of an ADOT. His ADOT's been around 9 yards, 9.8 as a rookie, 8.9 in his second season. His yak, 8.3 yards in 2022, 7.2 yards per catch in 2023. That's tremendous. And he showed it again a little bit in this preseason game. I guess I'm trying to say that maybe there's more to it than him just being like this little slot. I was going to say slot, but I guess that's Curtis Samuel. But this possession receiver, maybe Khalil Shakir's got a little more juice than that.
I just wonder how much of that, like last year he had 29 catches?
Yeah, he had like an 80-yard
80 yards. So like how much of it's just one play really, and a 46-yard play. Like it's great to make explosive plays, but the sample size is so small. It's hard to know how much it matters.
The one thing I think does matter though is he's the one that's got the history with Allen. So I think a lot of people, and we've certainly touched on this, is that wow, Samuel's got the history with Joe Brady, and look, it's such a small sample size, so we don't know. But is that going to matter more? Is Shakir's going to scenario going to matter more? Is Coleman, like you said, Adam? I think most people view it that way. I do as well. Is his upside more than these other guys? We're going to see it play out. And the one thing that I think is fun is that these weapons across the board may end up being better than what they lost. And that says a lot because clearly Diggs was still a very good player till the end. And Davis was a big part of what they do. But they may have better weapons if Kincaid steps up and Cook steps up and hopefully holds on to the ball. But might be better weapons for Josh Allen.
By the way, Keon Coleman, I know I mentioned this a lot during draft season, but it's been a while. And we have listeners who weren't here during draft season. He ran the second slowest 40 time among all wide receivers at the NFL Combine. It was over 4.6. That is not good. But he ran the fastest, as Keon Coleman out of Florida State, Bill's second-round pick. He ran the fastest gauntlet drill, which is guys running across the width of the field, catching passes on each side of their body. And that is basically exactly what Puka Nacua did the year before. One of the slowest 40 times and one of the fastest, if not for Puka, I think it was the slowest and the fastest, 40 versus gauntlet drill. So it will be interesting to see if the gauntlet drill becomes kind of the new standard bearer for wide receivers at the NFL Combine. But if you didn't know that about Keon Coleman, it's kind of a fun fact.
And just one point of clarification. Like Mixon was at practice and had a helmet on. He was also limited yesterday.
Okay.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code FANTASY, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FANTASY. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code FANTASY when you sign up. Time for the big news. Marquise Brown suffered a, would you guys like to say the name of the injury?
Shoulder.
Yes, sternoclavicular joint dislocation.
Iosivas,
yes. This is the same thing that Tyreek Hill had in 2019. He missed 4 games after that. He returned from injury and was basically himself. It's Tyreek Hill, not Marquise Brown. And so that could put him in line for week 1, week 2, something like that. But honest, we already talked about Rashee Rice. Heath has him in round 4. He has Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy in round 8. Jamey, is that more or less where you would have those guys?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. How about Mahomes? Does this do anything to Mahomes? His ranking?
No, still QB3.
QB3. Okay. Malik Nabers hurt his ankle. We are waiting for word on that. Name the 5 Giants wide receivers you would take a shot on if Malik Nabers right now. Just kidding. Green Bay rookie running back MarShawn Lloyd hurt his hamstring. I'm sorry. I think this has been a pretty good offseason for Josh Jacobs. I'm starting to feel like very good about him in the 3rd round. How about you guys?
Yeah, I moved him up as well. MarShawn Lloyd is not taking the steps either due to performance with the fumbles or health that could challenge Jacobs in a lot of ways. And we know what A.J. Dillon has been. So, I mean, I think Jacobs was always kind of that guy. I was probably the most concerned about him potentially sharing, but always that kind of guy that if you want to go, hero RB and start receiver, he would be there for you in round 3. You've kind of, I think, Adam, maybe put him ahead of this group, but that group of Kamara, Mixon, and Walker, I think that's kind of where he belongs personally. But you can put him in the same boat as Rashad White and Devon Achane too, just based on ADP.
That was my next question. I was like, which group would you put him in? So thank you for answering that.
I kind of have him by himself.
Yeah,
in between the 2 groups.
So I have him right now. I have him 13th, and I was thinking about this after I adjusted my rankings last night because I never sleep. I should probably move him ahead of Rashad White because Bucky Irvin looked really good. And so I appreciate the trade, by the way. I think it might be better served to lean a little bit toward Jacobs if this Lloyd injury lingers ahead of Rashad White. So I would put him more in the White Achane group.
In full PPR, you leaning toward Jacobs over White?
Yeah, I mean, look, if Lloyd can't practice and they can't trust him at least early in the season to pass protect, at least Jacobs could do that, and Dillon could even do that. So, how much is he going to come off the field?
And that's, I guess, I don't know what the difference is in Josh Jacobs' snap share if he's sharing with Lloyd versus if he's sharing with Dillon. Like, is this just the way the Packers are going to do it, and their RB2 is just not going to be quite as good, but the snap share stays the same?
Hey, look, Josh Jacobs has pretty much never been a 3rd down guy, right? Like, it was Amir Abdullah. That's not what he does. So even if he's not on the field on 3rd down, it doesn't mean he can't catch 45 passes or something like that if they dump it off to him. But he looks right now like the unquestioned, lead running back, right? And I think it'd be, I don't think it'd be crazy. I think it'd be unfortunate if they took him off the field near the goal line for A.J. Dillon. That hasn't really been talked about. If it happened in week 1, it wouldn't shock me. Dillon's actually been pretty decent, and Jacobs hasn't really been great in those situations. But if they want to find a role for A.J. Dillon, that's what they did with Aaron Jones. That's why I'm saying this. Like, Aaron Jones was not the goal line guy. A.J. Dillon was. It would bother me if they did that with Jacobs, but I don't think we can rule that out. And we never talk about that possibility.
Yeah, right. What I was more talking about, and I don't know when it will be, was just that, like, for the last year and a half, Josh Jacobs has had a lot of games where he played more than 80% of the snaps. The Packers have not really had a guy do that with LaFleur there. And he's the same coach that when he had Derrick Henry and Dion Lewis, he was playing Dion Lewis more than anybody wanted him to.
What do you think Josh Jacobs' LaFleur is? Thank you.
That was a good one.
Thank you, Heath. All right. What else we got? Cleveland reportedly offered Amari Cooper a 2nd-round pick and a 3rd-round pick for Brandon Ayuk, but that trade did not go through. And Deshaun Watson has been cleared for contact. So here we go, Deshaun Watson. It's time to try to get back into the good graces of fantasy managers. All right, let's go back to our risers and fallers. We have covered a lot of them. Jamey talked about all of his risers. They were Ty Chandler, Braelon Allen, Jets rookie running back, who is the clear handcuff right now to Breece Hall, Rashee Rice, Khalil Shakir, and Jakobi Meyers. I think I saw you had Shakir and Josh Palmer back-to-back. Is that right?
Sounds right.
That's an interesting decision. Yeah, you do have them back-to-back. It's McConkey, it's Coleman, McConkey, Odunze, Palmer, Shakir for you. Coleman, McConkey, Jose, Palmer, Shakir. It's an interesting range. And it's right. Okay. All right. Follow along here. Those 5, Coleman, McConkey, Odunze, Palmer, Shakir, they're right. Jameson Williams and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Is there a difference between JSN, Jameson Williams, and then that group of 5?
More upside with JSN and Williams for me.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you. Heath's risers, Calvin Ridley, Xavier Worthy, Darnell Mooney, and Andrei Iosivas. Okay, we have not talked about Ridley, a little bit on Worthy, and Darnell Mooney. All right, what do you got there for those 3 risers?
Love the fact that Calvin Ridley caught a pass like running sideways and not just running down the sideline. And there was some talk at the beginning of the year that cooled me a little bit on him, that he was kind of struggling with the connection with Will Levis. The last week, it's been much more positive. The DeAndre Hopkins injury obviously factors in. And then it's like sometimes, and Jamey's talked about this, that sometimes our rankings are impacted by where you can get a guy. And there was a lot more positive buzz about people saying what a great value Calvin Ridley is in drafts right now at wide receiver 35 or somewhere in the 30s. And I don't want to be too high on the guy, but I don't want to miss him either. So I moved him up a few spots from, I think he was wide receiver 31. He's wide receiver 27 or 28 right now.
Would you guys rather have Calvin Ridley or Rashee Rice?
Rice.
Do you anticipate moving Ridley down if DeAndre Hopkins is back ready for week 1, which it seems like he will be, but like officially comes back?
I really didn't move him. I moved him up a couple spots over the last couple weeks. You know, I was probably the low guy on him, but it really wasn't so much, oh, Hopkins going to miss any time. It's just, you know, sort of shuffling a few guys around in that range, but Hopkins will move back up. You know, he's probably a very good price right now.
Heath, what'd you do? You said Xavier Worthy's a round 8 pick. He's back to back with Marquise Brown. How does he compare with the other rookie wide receiver? Is he rookie wide receiver 3 for you?
He is now rookie wide receiver 3, but Brian Thomas is right behind him. Lad McConkey's right behind him. Rome Odunze and Keon Coleman are around behind them. But he is currently rookie wide receiver 3. And I still like he played quite a bit with Mahomes. I still kind of felt like he might be dependent on needing Marquise Brown to do something wrong or get hurt. And that happened a lot earlier than I was thinking that it might.
You guys want to hear a bold prediction? Ready?
Yeah.
Why do I do this to myself? I'm putting this out there just for ridicule. I'm not drafting it this way, but bold prediction, somewhat bold. Gabe Davis is going to have a better year than Brian Thomas.
It's not crazy.
If
Thomas is young, dude. He's going to take some time.
I just think he's a deep ball guy right now. That's what he basically almost all of his touchdowns are on deep balls, go routes, fly routes, whatever.
But what's Gabe Davis going to do if somebody else is the deep ball guy?
I was actually interested in that. What is he going to do? And I wanted to see what his average route depth was in this game, because I want to see them use Gabe Davis differently. I think there's a little untapped potential there. So did he have a lower average route depth? Well, his average route depth was I think 12.4 yards, which was higher than in any game with the Bills last year. They did not make that adjustment, but he did. I want to say he got 2 targets early in the game. Brian Thomas caught a deep ball later in the game. Pretty sure it was after most of the starters had come out. It was in the second quarter or late in the first quarter, or whatever. But yeah, I think Brian Thomas is a little developmental prospect.
But are you saying this because you think Gabe Davis is going to matter, or you just think that Brian Thomas is going to disappoint?
I've been taking Gabe Davis as like my last pick, basically. And I think he could matter in a streaming capacity.
Week 1.
Wow, who's week 1?
The Dolphins with that beat up defense right now.
Yeah, they have a terrible defense right now. We'll see what happens. But no, obviously I'm drafting Brian. I know what Gabe Davis is, I think. I'll draft Brian Thomas ahead of him. I'm worried about Thomas in the first half of the season for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you want to stay there. I'm worried about Christian Kirk.
Go ahead. Why?
I mean, the fact that he's dependent on just being in the slot right now. Like, I thought, okay, he'll move inside when one of the other 2 guys, when they go into receiver sets. And this was the case last year. They started out the same way preseason. He didn't play. And understandably so, you want your 2 guys on the perimeter to get some time with, Trevor Lawrence. And these are the 2 new guys. But if he's only going to be the slot guy, he's still very good. But I just had him ranked too high.
Interesting. And you moved him down?
I moved him down like not very much from a round perspective, but I didn't like I had him ahead of Amari Cooper. I made that adjustment. I moved Rice ahead of him, and I did switch him and Chris Godwin. So I had initially Kirk ahead of Godwin. I moved Godwin ahead of Kirk.
Oh, interesting. Okay. And
I still want to draft Christian Kirk. Like I said, I just had him a little bit too high.
last riser for Heath right now is Darnell Mooney. Discuss.
Yeah, I think that he's going to be on the field pretty much all the time. Drake London and Kyle Pitts are going to take a lot of attention. And Mooney may actually thrive efficiency-wise in this role where he doesn't have to be the number one wide receiver. Again, probably not going to be a top 25 wide receiver, but when you get to that 40 to 50 range, that Jakobi Meyers range, I think Mooney should be in it.
Okay. Falcons receiver Mooney, 53rd overall for
And look, they just lost a guy. Rondell Moore's out for the season, so that helps. Not that I think he was a factor to what Mooney was going to do because he's, was playing behind them. It will be interesting to see if they add somebody of significance to replace Rondell Moore. There was some talk. I think there's a connection with Juju. Again, not that would impact, I think, Mooney even, but just another body there. And Juju could also be a factor, shockingly enough, to the Steelers.
That's where he should go, right? Yeah.
All right,
Arthur Smith would love him as a blocker. Be great.
Running back. We'll take a break here on Fantasy Football Today. We have our rankings fallers. We have more news items. This is an important show. We watched a lot of preseason football, so you didn't have to, and we're going to keep you updated on everything you need to know. We'll be right back on FFT.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
Join us tomorrow night, Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, for our live stream. We're doing a half PPR, I think, mock draft. And we look forward to having you there on YouTube, youtube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. If you're watching on YouTube, hit like and please subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/fantasyfootballtoday. When we get to 100,000 subscribers, there will be confetti and balloons, and we'll all be a part of it. Rankings fallers for Heath: Joe Mixon, MarShawn Lloyd, Curtis Samuel, Marvin Mims. Talk Mims.
I think he still needs to be freed. He was not freed by the trade away of Jerry Jeudy. Tim Patrick playing more than him. Josh Reynolds, of course, playing more than him. Maybe he is the number 3 wide receiver, but that's not even certain right now. We have basically nothing but hope in what he did in college to base this Marvin Mims hope on, and I've pretty much lost mine. He's outside of my top 60 wide receivers.
Have you seen how tall the Broncos receivers are? They are like an NBA front court.
I just don't know why if you want to throw the ball 4 yards at a time, you play all these 6'3" giants that probably aren't going to do anything after the catch.
What was Bo Nix's numbers? Bo Nix, he undoubtedly had a good game, good debut. But Bo Nix had 15 for 21. He completed 15 passes for 125 yards. Very short stuff.
Going to be bad in yard per attempt leagues, but great in completion percentage.
Yeah. All right, Jamey's fallers: Tyjae Spears, Trey Benson, Christian Kirk, Marquise Brown, and Quentin Johnston. How far did you move Spears?
So I had the Steelers backs and the Titans backs basically back to back. And so I dropped Spears behind Chase Brown and Brian Robinson. And so he's now, I think, running back like 29 or 30 in that range. So again, not a big round difference, and I moved Pollard up a couple spots as well. So just separated them a little bit more because I think that's where they belong.
Interesting.
Benson looked awful.
Yeah, he did. He looked slow, didn't he?
Just bad. Like I didn't expect him to take Connor off the field for anything significant, but I thought there was a chance, and it's got to improve because it did not look good. And I'll tell you the other thing that also was troubling. When you have guys like this who I think, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, I think that I thought he was going to be a factor in the passing game. To not play on third downs when Connor's not playing.
Yeah.
Like they're not giving the chance to do that when they have a guy like Carter or, maybe DeMarcado to do some of the other things, so it was a little troubling with what happened with Benson.
I did feel like maybe we saw why we kept hearing that DeMarcado was going to be the third down back. I didn't move Benson yet, but it's concerning.
Well, it's a great point because if you're going to roster a handcuff, that's probably not going to be able to start for you unless the starter gets injured. You want to know that if the guy gets hurt, that this handcuff's going to walk into a really good situation. And if he's just going to be a first and second down back, then it's going to be a guy that obviously you're picking up, but it's maybe not someone who's going to have as big of an impact as you thought. Benson,
it's here we go again. Remember we had this conversation about don't get overexcited about these day 2 and day 3 running backs.
Yes.
And
the thing about Benson though is that he is a home run hitter. He gets compared to Ken Walker. He's a guy who gets.
You'll want to roster him if he's like you said. It's just you want to roster him. You want to draft him. Those things still remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I was under the impression that he had a chance to push Connor. He still might, but it didn't look good in the first instance of seeing it. Now again, no Kyler Murray, so take that for what it's worth. But still, it just didn't look like he was very explosive.
All right, Christian Kirk, you talked about moving down a little bit. Hollywood Brown, obviously. Quentin Johnston.
Almost undraftable at this point in like the biggest of leagues. Like I kept hoping, like maybe he'll do something, but it's just this one, the depth chart is telling.
Well, also, we better hope Justin Herbert is good for week 1 because they have a serious quarterback problem there.
Yeah.
And Herbert's got a foot injury, plantar fascia. Easton stick is not the answer, it seems. I think they're probably going to make a move. I think it's certainly possible that they
Tannehill, maybe.
Yeah. So, what do you guys think of the kickoffs?
Meh.
Nothing crazy.
But it's exciting to see them actually run it back. And we got some big plays. Some guys sprung some big plays.
I did like there was a 4th down play for the Ravens, and the announcers were saying, "I can't believe they're not going for it." And then I guess somebody said something like Harbaugh wanted to kick the field goal because he wanted to work on kickoffs.
Yeah, and I think a lot of players I saw running the ball out from the end zone. If a ball goes straight into the end zone or out of the end zone, it's a touchback, goes out to the 30. If a ball bounces inside the 20-yard line, the landing zone, and then rolls into the end zone, it's a touchback to the 20. But a ball that just straight up is kicked into the end zone or out of the end zone, if you down it, it's a touchback. It goes to the 30-yard line. Some guys were running it out, and probably because they just wanted to get some returns under their belt and see what they could do. In an actual NFL game, I think they're just going to settle for the 30-yard line, which is a pretty good field position. But I was watching it and I thought, I don't want to be like the most anti this thing, but I was like, God, I really don't want kickoff return yards to count on my fantasy team. I think there are going to be a lot of them. And a guy can field the ball at the 5-yard line, get to the 25-yard line, and some leagues might reward them 2 points for that. And if that happens 4 times a game, and that is significant. I have no interest in it this year. Sorry for being that.
Why do you think that yards that you pick up in one fashion matter more than yards you pick up in another?
I just think that first of all, it's so much easier. Think about how easy it is for a guy to catch the ball at the 5-yard line.
Think of how easy it is for a guy to catch a screen and fall down and get a point.
You know what? That is more skill than running the ball 20 yards straight before being contacted. But I just think
it's not.
I just think it's going to have too much of an impact. And it's what I said. I don't think you were on this episode. We spend all off season working so hard to tell you which players to pick. And then your fantasy games, your matchups are going to be decided because this guy ran back 5 kicks for 110 yards. And it's like, none of the preseason prep you did is going to matter. And that is so stupid to me. And I have no desire to be in a point per kick return yard league.
I'm just mad that I didn't draft Malik Washington in the fishbowl.
Is he returning a whole bunch of kicks for the Dolphins?
He was their kick and punt returner.
Chase Brown returned a kick.
He's also a wide receiver handcuff because, my gosh, imagine how good he'll be if something happens to Tyreek or Waddle.
I don't know. It could be Beckham if he ever gets healthy.
Who?
Yeah, he's hopefully back next week. All right. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. You could throw those in the.
Go to Chase Brown because that's a good one to talk about.
Yeah. Well, Zach Moss didn't play. Chase Brown started. Didn't do much, but he did return a kick. Any changes here?
No.
Let me run through that wasn't such a good one then.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you want to talk about it since he was the guy.
There's a chance that nobody's going to look very good running the ball for the Bengals.
You hate your offensive line.
I'd be okay with, because then we get a lot more Joe Burrow passes to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
All right, let me go through all these notes here. Russell Wilson's going to play this upcoming week. Dak Prescott, minor ankle injury, he says it's totally fine. The Raiders are going to announce their starting quarterback after this week's preseason game. Don't know if really anybody had a leg up after this last game. Minshew had a very nice touchdown throw. Giants backup quarterback Drew Lock is expected to miss time with a hip pointer and a strained oblique. And Daniel Jones is I think he's going to play this week, right? In the preseason game? Or yeah.
Daniel LaRusse is going to fight.
There he is. Running back news. Joe Biscaglia of The Athletic says James Cook has had fumbling issues in training camp. Anybody moving Cook down?
Not yet.
No.
Pacheco or Cook for you guys?
Pacheco.
Cook.
Yeah, Pacheco.
And for all you Bills fans, they're always telling me that I only like the Chiefs and I always talk bad about the Bills. James Cook over Isaiah Pacheco.
Ooh, Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes?
Oh, it's Mahomes.
All right. Keon Coleman or Xavier Worthy?
Worthy.
Rashee Rice or Khalil Shakir?
Come on.
You are such a homer, Heath.
Come on.
ESPN's Dan Graziano thinks the Vikings want to get Aaron Jones 15 to 18 touches per game and use Ty Chandler as a 1B. Jamey, you've been the pro Chandler, anti-Jones guy. Thoughts?
I mean, it's a different report from what Yahoo had when they were on their camp tour of, expect more of a 50-50 split. Look, Jones is going to be the lead rusher. There should be no mistake about that. But he's also 29 and missed, 5+ games last year with hamstring injuries. So I'm most likely going to avoid Jones and draft Chandler. That's just the way I build my teams. I don't in that range. I don't usually look for Aaron Jones. I'm typically taking receivers or quarterback or tight end. So where I tend to pick my running backs from, it's Ty Chandler, and I thought he looked good. I thought Nwangwu looked good too. Like I said, he looked explosive. So I think the bigger story from Minnesota is their quarterbacks look good, both of them. And if you're a Justin Jefferson guy, debating the top of the receiving core, receiving rankings again. It might be a mistake to pass on Jefferson after what he did with Nick Mullins and what those two guys look like.
Sure, but this should be the time where I say players looking good in the preseason probably shouldn't matter. Players looking bad in the preseason should matter, right?
Yeah, I do think, though, Darnold made multi-level throws that, looked different for him. And McCarthy, he tried to force the ball at the end of the half, bad throw, but came out looking very confident in the second half. Again, backups, as Pete Prisco likes to say, bouncers and bartenders that he's thrown against. But it still looked good. And again, just with that guy, I think you said it before, he's just different, Jefferson. And so as long as there's competent quarterback play, he could still be 20+ points per game, like he was with Nick Mullins, who had just competent quarterback play for him.
It mattered to me more how I thought McCarthy looked really good and how he looked than it does Sam Darnold. But because Darnold's probably going to start. But now if Darnold's terrible, I feel pretty confident that McCarthy's going to be okay.
And Jefferson is wide receiver what for you?
3.
Currently, and those guys move all the time. I just talked about this. I think they're 4.
Okay. Trey Sermon, backup running back for the Colts. He appeared to be the number 2 guy behind Jonathan Taylor. He left with a hamstring injury. Yeah, I'm not even going to ask you for a handcuff for Jonathan Taylor.
I was going to say, I used to think it was Evan Hull, but I think he was like the 4th running back that came in.
Goodson, right?
Goodson played before Evan Hull, so mostly we don't care.
ESPN's Dan Graziano said, if there is a Green Bay wide receiver you want, he thinks it's Romeo Doubs. And of course, Dontavian Wicks had the long touchdown catch. I'm starting to wonder, is there a Green Bay wide receiver I want? I know the answer is yes, but you could see this deep receiving core, playing time issues. It's like it could be a little frustrating.
Well, I think the fun part of this is you don't have to invest heavily in any of them. So Watson and Reed are mid-round picks, depending on what ADP you look at or how your draft's going to go. And Dobbs and Wicks are late-round picks. And the thing you just got to understand is don't go into it with these guys. Go into it. Now, keep that in mind. Go into it the season with these guys are going to be difference makers. I think if Watson hits, he can be. If Reed goes back to being that multiple facet player that they use, he can be. Scores 10 touchdowns again. That goes without saying. But then if there's an injury, as we saw last year with Watson, Wicks could take off, or Dobbs could just be a touchdown guy, scored 8 touchdowns. So you just want to get a piece of it if you can.
Yeah, I don't know if he was saying it's because of this, but I think Dobbs at ADP might be the best bet. And I would bet on Dobbs leading them in snaps.
Agree.
I don't think he was saying that. He said that Romeo Dobbs had been kind of like Jordan Love's guy in different situations. But this is, I don't want to put words in the guy's.
Well,
he's not the first to say that.
We heard it last year too. We heard 2 predictions that Romeo Dobbs would lead the team in target or catches. And I wonder, did he lead the team in catches last year?
I was thinking probably.
Let's see.
No, Jayden Reed. He led him in targets.
He did. He had 2 more targets than Reed. How about that? Okay, let's move on. Tight end. Gerald Everett appears to be ahead of Cole Kmet for the Bears. I'm not drafting those guys. We're not drafting a Bears tight end, right?
I think anybody that was in the Kmet camp, that was trouble.
Offensive line news. I'd say the biggest one would be that Pittsburgh rookie offensive tackle Troy Fautanu has a minor MCL sprain. He's in contention for a starting spot. On defense, you had Baltimore rookie cornerback Nate Wiggins leaving with a shoulder injury. San Francisco cornerback Ambry Thomas. He's a depth piece. He's going to miss time with a broken hand. Atlanta had a pass rusher and a safety, both young guys that are going to miss significant time. The pass rusher, Trice, he might miss the season. These are backups, but contributors. So the Falcons had a bad day in terms of injuries. And the Jaguars signed Tayshaun Gibson, a safety who was suspended 6 games for a PED violation. He'll be a depth piece for them. Okay, preseason takeaways. Man, I have so many. There's no way I can get through. But let's talk about the rookie quarterbacks. We talked about Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels. We're very encouraged. I mean, if you see the play, and RG3 actually did a good video breakdown of Caleb Williams. Play action, pump faking, creating separation between him and the defensive end, rolling to his right and firing a absolute dart to DJ Moore, I believe it was. It was a terrific throw.
Third down throw?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I like that he had 13 rushing yards. I mean, again, you don't want to make too much of it, but if he can get to 400 rushing yards, that would be huge for Caleb.
You've been saying that for a long time. I know you go back to his, I think, 2 previous years of college, right?
Yeah, he was over 370 rushing yards in both of those seasons, and that was obviously in fewer than 17 games. People look at like 150 rushing yards last year, which I think sacks count, by the way, in that stat, I think. But he's capable of more. So I'm excited.
Listen, I think Heath probably feels the same way. If you're looking at Daniels or Williams, and if you're taking those guys, you're probably taking them ahead of that group of Tua and Purdy and Goff and Lawrence, and I don't know who I might be missing in there. Stafford, Rodgers' cousins. There's a huge list of guys that you just take one of those other veteran guys that are established and proven, and if they flop, you go the other way. Like Goff is a perfect quarterback to pair with Caleb Williams because of the schedule.
Yeah. And like by our current ADP, which gets more and more data every day that we talk about it, Caleb Williams and Jayden Daniels both going down this week for like later in drafts. I think QB 14 and QB 15 right now. Pick 108 and pick 115. Williams is in round 10 now. Tua and Goff and Purdy are all 3 ahead of them.
You have any thoughts? I want to say with Jayden Daniels throwing that deep ball, Terry McLaurin is a deep ball guy who has had quarterbacks who have been extremely inaccurate with deep balls basically his entire career. Now, Jayden Daniels dropped a dime to De'Ami Brown. Let's start hoping that's Terry McLaurin, but it's good to see because that is something that he was really good at, Jayden Daniels, in college. Threw a beautiful deep ball, and that could really help Terry McLaurin.
I think there was a lot to like about Washington. The one guy you've been talking about, Adam, Luke McCaffrey, may have been a little bit of suffered a little bit.
Yeah.
He did some good things, but just didn't play with the first group.
Yeah.
Dotson moving to the slot, that could be a plus for him. And Ben Sinnott, my goodness, he looked great. Again, didn't play a lot with Daniels, but how do you keep Zach Ertz ahead of him? Like that doesn't make sense. Like Sinnott's going to be good.
Oh, I thought you said Benson. I was like, who? Ben Sinnott.
Benson.
Yeah, rookie tight end. What did you guys have anything to say about the Broncos quarterbacks, the Raiders quarterbacks?
Man, if Bo Nix, I think, got a little closer to being named week 1 starter, and if he is, does he become the 3rd highest rookie quarterback in Superflex leagues? It's so difficult if you don't know when McCarthy or Drake May are going to get their first start to take them in that format, because you almost just have to pair him up with the other guy or take 4 quarterbacks. And I think Bo Nix is probably going to be okay as a low-end QB2, assuming he gets to start week 1.
Running back. What did you guys think of the Broncos backfield? It was Javonte Williams was the clear starter. Samaje Perine was the 3rd down guy. It's funny, I'm almost looking at Javonte and McLaughlin, who look pretty good, as not in terms of playing time, but in terms of stylistically, as like a similar Zach Moss to Chase Brown. You got McLaughlin's looks like the more explosive guy. Javante's got the size. And Jamey, I would say this was probably a win for Javonte just in terms of role, but McLaughlin looked pretty good. What'd you think?
I mean, if you want to make comps, I think the Sean Payton comp is more reasonable of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Not that they perform like that, but one guy can be the more physical threat, and then the other guy could come in and be change of pace and work in the backfield. The Perine playing time was disappointing for McLaughlin until he came on the field and certainly looked the part of someone who's gotten a lot of positive reviews this offseason. And then the Perine drop that led to the interception. Who knows how much that plays into what happens to him down the road. There's too many people there. That's the problem. If they're going to play 3 guys, because it's hard to anticipate them playing 4 guys. So Estime is the one you got to be a little concerned about. But if they're going to play 3 guys, it just caps the ceiling for what Javonte could be. And that's kind of been my concern, is that I was pleased to hear he's looked great in camp. And 2 years removed from the ACL tear, I don't think he's going anywhere unless somebody comes and makes a huge offer, which who's going to do that for a running back? So my guess is that he's still very safe as a low-end starter, high-end flex, someone you could take after, for at least for me. I know he's probably still higher on him, but in that group of guys of like Warren and Spears and Chase Brown, Brian Robinson, that whole group of running backs that'll go in probably around 6 or 7. I still am probably going to gravitate toward McLaughlin because I get him cheap. And I think depending on if you didn't watch the game and you just hear the positive reports about Williams and saw that he scored, I think he scored a touchdown, right? That he, performed well, might help his cause a little bit more. So I hope that's the top 2 and Perine kind of gets phased out.
All right. Let's see. We had Ray Davis was the number 2 running back for the Bills, but Ty Johnson missed the game with a hamstring injury. Isaiah Pacheco, he was in on 3rd and 2, which I thought was, good to see. Good to see that he was in there. 3rd and 2, I guess, could be a running down, but they threw the ball there. Pacheco's a guy that you guys probably have already been here. I'm sort of just letting go of my concerns for Pacheco. Why was I concerned? Because he took over the feature back job in week 10 of 2022. From that point on, his next 22 games, Isaiah Pacheco scored more than 16.2 PPR fantasy points in 1 of 22 games. And then about mid-season last year or late season and into the postseason, he was a machine. He was a monster. But I didn't want to just forget about those 22 games where he was good, but almost never great. And the biggest difference was McKinnon was out. But I think he's ready to take like the next step and be more consistently great.
Go ahead.
Heath, go.
I want to do one of those Adam things, and so I'll just say it, but I'm not changing my rankings yet, but I want to. I think Isaiah Pacheco is going to score more fantasy points than Saquon Barkley this year.
He might.
I can't really find any more reasons to doubt Isaiah Pacheco. I think
he's now moved ahead of ETN for me. So
no, I'm not doing that. ETN, man, they said they wanted to get more involved in the passing game. He ran a great route, caught the touchdown. But I think they're back to back for everyone, basically, right? Like everyone here.
I'm sure. Close.
Pacheco.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got ETN, Barkley, White, Pacheco.
Okay. Pretty impressed with Jalen Wright, rookie running back for the Dolphins. He was behind Jeff Wilson for what it's worth, but he looked good. Talked about the Titans running backs, talked about the Bears running backs, wide receiver. You see the potential for T. Higgins if Jamar Chase were to miss time. Joe Burrow threw 8 throws including the pass interference that Higgins drew. And 4 of them went to Higgins, and 1 of them was a touchdown.
The one where he almost caught it in double coverage was almost ridiculous.
Yep, that deep ball too. There are 3 names I want to give out. 2 of them you don't need to draft or anything, but just Rams wide receiver Jordan Whittingham.
Yes.
Vikings wide receiver Jalen Naylor. Of course, Jefferson didn't play, but these guys are just good young players, it seems. And Steelers wide receiver Van Jefferson. I mean, this is probably going to be their number 2 receiver, right?
Juju.
Barring a trade.
Tank Dell had a 34-yard touchdown catch. That was cool. Dontavian Wicks had a 65-yard touchdown catch. We talked about Jakobi Meyers.
Go back to Dell for a second, because he was not playing on 2 receiver sets.
Yeah. That's not a surprise, right? Actually,
not great.
I will say I want to give credit to Dwayne McFarland of Fantasy Life. He had a lot of good notes on participation for every team. And I think what he said about that was like the Texans, they did that with their guys a lot last year. They rotated. They didn't necessarily have a set, you're in on 2 receiver set,
right,
set list. They did rotate. So it was only 1 drive. But yeah, it was worth noting. And Stephon Diggs, I think people are overreacting a little bit to the Stephon Diggs sideline thing. It seemed constructive to me.
Oh, I think it probably was. It's just how long until CJ Stroud gets annoyed with it. Like, even if it's constructive, like every time you come off the field, you don't get a target, I have to hear this.
The responses to somebody tweeting it out were pretty funny. I'm sure Thomas probably has it. It was like, Vikings fans, Bills fans, he's got a pattern.
But I thought, like, Jamey's right. It is important to note that Diggs played out of 2 wide receiver sets and Dell didn't. I think it's also was indicative that a Tank Dell target and snap is probably going to be more valuable than a Stephon Diggs target or snap.
Yes.
Man, that was awesome. And for what it's worth, I think you saw Diggs celebrating as soon as Dell caught that ball. I knew it was going to be a touchdown. Yep. Tight end notes. All I had, it's worth noting that Michael Mayer did play a decent amount. And is he going to hurt Brock Bowers? Not in the same way, but in a similar way that Dawson Knox maybe hurt Dalton Kincaid to start the season before Knox got hurt.
A different way, but yes, it certainly could be an issue. So I thought Bowers looked really good. It's just a matter of, can you trust him to be a consistent week in, week out fantasy starter? I'll say the same thing I've been saying. If you look at Dalton Kincaid's numbers last year, very solid for a rookie tight end, just not consistent weekly starter. I think that's kind of what you're going to get from Bowers. So good late round, number 1 tight end. Just don't reach for him.
I'd like to see, I hope they are going to play their quarterbacks next week, the Raiders, for a quarter each. I want to see what they do with the running backs, because I don't think Alexander Mattison is really a threat. I don't think any of us do right now, but White played a possession, then Mattison played a possession, and then I'm pretty sure Abdullah started playing the next possession, and then White came in to hammer in the goal line touchdown. Just would like to see a little bit more clarity there, but we're all assuming Zamir White is just the starter, right? The main.
Yes.
All right. I mentioned Dwayne McFarland from Fantasy Life. Here were some of his notes. Mike Gesicki had a 71% route participation rate with Joe Burrow. Roma Dunze had a 50% route participation rate with the starters. That was another situation where Keenan Allen and DJ Moore were really the 2 receiver set guys. Keon Coleman had a 100% route participation with the starting wide receivers. And usually I'd end the show right now, but I want to read some emails because people donated to get their question read, and they are going to get that question read. This guy, I don't think was one of them. I think he just had a good question. I wanted to read it. From Bruce. Who are some players that are being underdrafted because of some perceived or manifested shortcoming, like Mike Evans last year, Josh Jacobs the year before? I think he mentioned Adam Thielen in this. Oh, no, that's our next email. But yeah.
So I think by our ADP, Rashee Rice definitely qualifies at pick 83. And the perception is the suspension that we don't really have any reason right now to think is going to happen.
Yeah. Who else?
Steelers running backs because of Arthur Smith.
Being underdrafted or overdrafted?
I think underdrafted.
Okay. Oh, because they're going to split, you mean? Got it. How about...
I'll say Russell Wilson because of fears of getting benched. He does not actually have an ADP on CBS, I don't think. Literally not listed in the quarterbacks.
I'm going to say Terry McLaurin a little bit. as like he just kind of needs to be what he has been, and he'll probably hit his ADP, which is round 7. And if he's better, then hooray! But he's been. I think people are a little tired of Terry McLaurin, and I get it. But now he's just falling into good value. All right, next email from don't know his name.
One more, Tony Pollard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dear John, James, Richard, and George. Those are the real first names of the Beatles.
Do you hate them?
I think they're going to be okay. I think they're like a decent band.
Okay.
I love the Beatles. What wide receiver had over 100 receptions and 1,000 yards last year, was a strong fantasy performer in the first half of the season, and hasn't been mentioned at all by most experts for 2024?
I'm going to guess Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I gave that one away.
Good guess.
Should he be mentioned? Should Adam Thielen be mentioned?
He should absolutely be mentioned. I don't know how many people are going to be excited about Adam Thielen at his age. And they brought in two, somewhat prominent receiving threats, trading for Deontay Johnston and drafting Xavier Leggett. Is that what we're saying now?
Leggett, I believe it is. Yeah. He's back at practice.
Leger.
Use the ball. So, I mean, Thielen's still going to have some weeks, but late round pick, sure.
From Lucas, I inherited an orphaned keeper team, 1 quarterback, half PPR. I made some trades. I'm going to draft Marvin Harrison at 101. I also have pick 104. Should I take Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas, Xavier Worthy, or someone else? He does not want to go with a running back.
At 104?
Uh-huh.
I wonder if you could trade back again.
That's true. But if you had to choose between McConkey, Thomas, and Worthy, who would you pick?
Worthy.
Ray from Panama says, Dear Ed, Kelly, Gordon, and Bortus. Those are characters from the Orville. Okay. 6 point per passing touchdown, half PPR league. Quarterback passing yards are 1 point for every 20 yards. How would you approach this draft in terms of overall quarterback value?
1 point for every 20 yards?
Yeah. I'm going to do some quick math while you guys talk.
I wouldn't change much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they'd get bumped up a little bit.
Overall players, yes, you can take them a little sooner, but
the running quarterbacks are not quite as valuable. But I probably wouldn't move too much.
Remember the number 183?
I'd move Stroud up.
229 minus 183. Jared Goff would have earned another fantasy points last year in this format. Yeah, that's a big deal. So keep that in mind. For that he was one of the leaders in passing yards, but Tua, Goff,
Stroud.
maybe
Burrow.
Yeah, I was thinking later guys, but yeah, those guys are going to add a lot of points. Thank you all so much for your emails, for your questions to benefit St. Jude. Very much appreciate it. Crowd today on YouTube. Hit the like button and hit subscribe. We appreciate it. And we've got FFT Express coming up. If you want to stick around for that. And when's Dynasty? Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Me
and Gibbs talking tight end premium.
All right. I got to get Gibbs on this show. You can't hog Jacob Gibbs.
Yeah, he's busy getting ready for my show.
All right. We'll talk to you later, everybody. See ya.